All right, welcome to another webinar offered through the 28 days of OLLIE. Today's focus is all about personalized learning, and we have Evan Abbey and Marv Howard with us today. Why don't we start with some introductions, guys? Evan, why don't you start?
Hey, I'm Evan, and I've been one of the facilitators for the 28 Days community, and I've just been really excited getting to work with you. I work for AEA PD Online. I'm the program director there, and I work a lot with schools and who are looking at this concept of personalized learning. It's one of the biggest new items that districts are interested in. So we're very excited about this concept here.
Good. Marv, why don't you introduce yourself?
I'm Marv Howard. Did I just enlarge you? Or sorry, I just went to full screen. I'm Marv Howard. I'm the Advanced Learning Technologist for AEA PD Online. I've been working for a number of years with the teacher training system that everybody's pretty familiar with. It's where you take your mandatory reporter training. And for the last 6 months to a year or so, we've been working on the student personalized learning system, getting this ready for this spring, and we're all pretty excited about it.
Good. Why don't we start with some questions for you guys to help us to kind of get used to what personalized learning is. Evan, why don't you walk us through kind of a big picture of personalized learning? What would you say, help people understand a bit of what is it? What's the definition? What would help us understand it a little more?
Well, that's a good question, and one of the difficulties is a lot of people have different definitions of it. There's a statewide task force for personalized learning in conjunction with competency-based education and some other movements in the state. It's written into things like race to the top legislation and such. But I would be willing to bet if you could get 10 people who are experts or gurus with personalized learning in the same room, you probably have about 10 different definitions for what it is. That's what makes it really challenging to implement. So one of the things that we do with working with personalized learning with schools to help try to narrow it down is we try to work with some specific definitions and then kind of branch out from there. I'm actually going to share my screen and show a little bit what we're working with here. I got that up and right there. So one of the common definitions used, and I mentioned the federal definition for this, for the race to the top, was set by the U.S. Department of Education. And so this is a little wordy, but to break it down a little bit, they hit on three things that a lot of people are familiar with. When you're personalizing with instruction, you're differentiating it, you're specializing it around what's the needs of the learners, what are their preferences for how they learn, and then what are their own interests in things. So, are they interested in this concept here or that? In education, we tend not to do that. Our curriculum is set beforehand before we consider those three things very often. So if you start with those, and then that helps you determine what the curriculum is, that's a big part of the federal definition of personalized learning. They go on to say, though, that it's not, so in addition to that, all the things that then come out of what we consider traditional curriculum can vary. The objectives themselves, which we normally set ahead of time, this class will cover these objectives and whatever. In personalized learning, that all varies depending on those three factors. Also, what varies is the method you deliver it in, and also the pace. And in a lot of situations with personalized learning, we have a pace of a class that meets, a semester. That's what learning looks like. In personalized learning, I say, you know what, if the objectives are this and the student masters it in this much time instead of the full semester, they move on to the next thing. And so all of those things that are constants in the regular classroom are variables in a personalized learning classroom. They go on to use a chart which kind of maps out some of the differences between that idea of personalized learning and then kind of the traditional model, if you will. And I'll leave this up on the screen if people are looking at it. So I like the graphic to kind of identify some basic things. We use that in our personalized learning class that we offer through our catalog. A couple of things, though, I mentioned the term differentiated instruction. A lot of teachers connect differentiated instruction with personalized learning, and that's a major component. There's more than just that. You can look at things like, the students have a voice in the curriculum. The model for it is project-based or constructivist type, where learning is constructed by the student and directed by the student, and the teacher is more guide on the side instead of sage on the stage. And then it also comes from multiple sources instead of just one source. So it comes from a lot of different areas and such. One key component that helps with this, and I mentioned competency-based education, and another area where we see this a lot is credit recovery. It's very much a data-driven type of model. So again, in a traditional model, you have the curriculum, and students go through and they're tested, but then if they haven't mastered it, too bad, because we got to go on to the next unit. It's very much time-bound in how you schedule it out. Personalized learning is not. Personalized learning, it starts with, again, that data. What's the student ready for? What have they mastered? And then that dictates what the content is and the assessment. So it makes a loop from that. That provides its own challenges. I don't want to make it sound like, hey, why aren't we all doing this? Because that's more resource intensive. There's a lot of things with that. But that's a really big component. The other big component about personalized learning is relevance. And this is a very simplified view of it, but you can connect different aspects of things and map your learning opportunities in kind of three different paradigms. One is what's going on in the class, which is a structured group of learners. But then you also have what are the things that you're doing with learning on your own, and what are the things you're doing that's learning out in the world, and how do we connect those so that they're not isolated. And again, in a traditional classroom, they kind of struggle with some of those aspects of those three different areas. Personalized learning helps to connect those. So all that kind of ties in with a definition and some key aspects of it that help schools out.
So as we look down the road here, Evan, it seems like personalized learning would kind of be what you'd call a game changer for Iowa. What makes the system so unique, and why is that so?
Well, as I mentioned, it has the potential to do a lot of the things that we would like to do. And we've talked in education about personalization and things for many years. It's not necessarily a new concept. The problem has always been it's very tough to implement. If you're trying to differentiate in your class and you have 30 in your class, does that mean 30 different lesson plans? And to some teachers it does, and so they immediately throw up their hands. If you have students that have a wide variety of interests, does that mean you now have to become an expert in all those interest areas? Again, all those things keep us from really implementing personalized learning how we would like to. We'd love to be able to provide, specific instruction around an area of interest for a student, but we just don't have the time or the resources to do that. There's other challenges too with it. The traditional schedule where you have semesters and you have hours during the day, that doesn't always allow you to go and to create these flexible learning opportunities. If a student's ready to learn something right then and there, are you able to give it to them? What if it's on the weekend? What if it's at night? That type of thing. So we have a challenge in the state, and that challenge is to try to help bring about personalized learning opportunities in an efficient manner. And our answer to that is to create an online system for this. It's not to say that this is all personalized learning is going to look like. If you're doing personalized learning, it's going to be in the system, but it's a way of bringing it about in an efficient manner. Right? Here's what we can do. If we have one system, we can have different curriculum experts from across the state provide content, provide curriculum into that. And then suddenly, if you were a teacher and you had this much expertise in a certain area, you don't have to go and recreate all these other pieces too. Another teacher from another part of the state might have already done that, and you can piggyback off of them. Or there might be a national content piece that's been put in. We're all told we need to provide things like financial literacy and citizenship, things as part of the Iowa Core, 21st century skills. How much, as a teacher, are you an expert in financial literacy? You're probably not. I mean, I was a language arts teacher. I certainly wasn't an expert in that. So having access to those curricular pieces makes it much more easy for me to weave that in. The other thing about being online that's important is that online learning helps kind of break down some of those time barriers. You can have online be done at home. It can be very flexible paced. It allows the student to reread things, or if it's a video, to rewatch the video or things like that. Whereas if it's all face to face, it's kind of, you got to get it through this go through, or else how do you get it? So all of those things are important aspects of it being online that this helps out with. The other thing too is that this is a program that connects with a lot of different opportunities. We have a lot of resources in the state, a lot of groups in the state that would like to help teachers out with education. They just don't have a means to do it. The STEM Council is a great example. So we want to be a leader in STEM education, and we have this STEM Council in the state, and they're putting together some units and some other supports. But the problem always is that local schools, especially small schools, don't have a STEM teacher. They don't have a STEM program. It's great you got these resources out here, but I can't go and put those as a learning opportunity. If we can find a way where a system is available that a student could do that on their own, or a counselor, without having to be an expert in STEM, could put together a STEM learning opportunity for a student, we've now made that much more powerful. We've now built a place where interests can be explored and such. And so that's another key aspect. And and the other thing too is we want it to be scalable. People use programs for credit recovery, and they spend a lot of money on them and such. We want this to be a system that you could use with one student or with many. A teacher could use it one time or with a lot of times in a class. It's not something that you have to invest in and use it fully, like we're investing in everyday math, and so that's our math curriculum and nothing else works. This is something that you can utilize and take and leave depending on how your needs change and your students change.
Mm-hmm. Evan, as you were talking there, I just wrote down 3 things and maybe hit on those a little bit more. How do you see the different pieces of differentiation, competency-based learning, and credit recovery all fitting within this personalized learning plan?
That's a great question. So I'm gonna pull up another diagram, share my screen and pull up another diagram. This diagram is what we use to kind of explain how the system works. And this is going to be kind of overwhelming, lots of colors the first time you see it. But I'm going to walk you through some of the key portions of it here. I'm going to pull it up and go to my diagram here. When we look at traditional curriculum, we think I'm looking at this column this says components catalog here. And within it, we've got things like lessons, we've got tasks and assessments. And those are kind of some common components of a curriculum. And so we might, keeping like in that STEM Council mode, STEM might say, well, we've got a STEM curriculum here. It's made up of these 40 lessons, these 10 assessments, these 10 tasks. And we have different ways of putting them into the system, whether STEM develops them or we develop them or a local teacher develops them, or they're a national thing provided by Stanford or whomever. So we've got ways in which we can put in and build up a really robust catalog. But that's not where the system really excels. Where the system excels as a personalized learning system then is this area right here. You can go in as a school, as a teacher or as a counselor, as an at-risk coordinator, whatever, and you can grab the elements from the catalog that interest you and that apply to your student or students and create your own learning opportunity. And it's as simple as saying, I want to create a learning opportunity for this, so I want to select, out of that STEM stuff, these 10 lessons, these 5 tasks, these 5 assessments, and I'm going to package together. Oh, and you know what would also really be beneficial? There's this other module, not even a part of that curriculum, but it's part of digital citizenship, and I want to put that in there too. Oh, and I want to put in my own module on something. This system allows you to do that. And it doesn't matter why you're doing it. So a classroom teacher might want to differentiate within their class. And so they'll go and they'll find some modules that might be appropriate for a student that needs some remediation or a student that needs some acceleration or just even some interest-based things. You know, like, again, language arts teacher, we would do some things with Romeo and Juliet to try to make Romeo and Juliet come alive for our students. One of the things I did was the history of sword fighting. And, you know, boys in the class would actually pay attention to Romeo and Juliet because we got to sword fight in the class. You should try it sometime. And so that would be some interest-based enrichment that could be right at your fingertips as a teacher. You could say, you know, here's an option that you could add in to your class, you know, for students as part of that differentiation. And you could choose that, or you could choose something else. There's going to be a lot of different options. A school, though, might say, we want to actually put together a competency around X. You know, maybe we want our students to be digital citizens. And so a digital citizen needs to show that they're a digital citizen by completing these items, these tasks. That won't be completed in a class. That'll be completed over maybe a whole school career. But they'll still be able to connect and pull together certain things that maybe some of them are completed in individual classes and some of them are completed on their own or what have you. It's just still another way of gathering and pulling those things together around that. And that case, that learning opportunity is even bigger than a class would be. We have some other ones, you know, a pathway with a community college would be in here, a standard-based grading. That's not, I don't have a blue box for it, but that would be in here as well. Even a personalized plan, letting the students go in and choose. I have an interest in video game design, and so I'm going to pull, you know, I'm going to actually do my own independent study around this. And then the idea of competency-based, of credit recovery is the other item too. A lot of schools are looking for ways in which students can go and you know, recover a credit in algebra, government, a course that they failed and they need for graduation, and they don't have a, you know, maybe it's for summer school, or they don't have a section available. And so what they could do with this system is have the students take a pre-assessment and determine what they're capable of and what they're not capable of, or what they're what they've mastered and what they haven't. And the things that they haven't mastered, then they could pull together items from our catalog to reach that, and then award the credit based on mastery of those, instead of having to go back and take the same course again and again and again. That's how those things fit. Once you create a learning opportunity, you assign a student to it, they complete the work, and then whatever it is, if it's a lesson, the system tracks what they've completed. If it's a task, the system, you know, they might upload an artifact or create a project within the system, and that's there. And if there's assessments, those results are there too. All of those things essentially create a portfolio because you're doing them within the system. And so, you know, it's not just that we've done something and, you know, the teacher looked at it and graded it and now it's thrown away. This is a cumulative record of what you've done, and you can share that with other people. You know, you can make certain things public or private. It's a way of a student taking their educational work and actually using it to demonstrate what they've done. And then schools can go from there and say, yeah, we're going to issue credit for this or whatever they'd like to do. So.
Sure. Good. Well, this definitely shows, looks like it has a lot of promise, and maybe it'd be helpful to maybe toss it over to Marv now. And Marv, can you kind of show us what's there now and, you know, what's to come with this system, and kind of walk us through what it actually looks like?
Certainly. I'll go through some of the basic functions that a teacher would do for just in a normal situation. I've signed in as Hugh Teacher, just in any town community school district. And Hugh's got a student or two that he thinks should probably work on some more in-depth work with physics. So he's going to click on the module link and go to science and find, let's use one. This one sounds good. This looks like the sort of physics module that he was looking for, the sound waves application. Now the teacher can say, is this really it? Go through, can see this content of the module, preview it, and say, yeah, I think this one's going to work for what I want to do. So he goes back and selects it. Now he's already assigned a couple students to this, but he can grab another student and say Libby was, because that was the one he was thinking about. So now he has 3 students working on this physics module. He can see what their progress. He thinks that Libby, you know, she might want a little extra time, so let's give her an extra week to work on it. So now he's set her off a little bit into the future. And this looks like Cindy's done. So let's look over. This is what Cindy, the student, is seeing. She can see where the teacher assigned her into the module right there. This is what her page looks like in the system. And it shows her progress right here. It shows that she passed quiz 1. So she's sitting on the last page. She just needs to mark this as complete so that the teacher can see that this module is done. Now, if she doesn't mark it as complete, he has a button that says he can do it himself. If let's say that the final assessment wasn't a quiz. Let's say the final page of this module was a project, and she had to turn that in for the teacher to look at. He can look at that and then mark her down as complete. In this case, let's mark her as complete. It took her back to her group page, shows that she completed it. Now when the teacher, because let's go back to the teacher's group home, he can see the progress and going through. And he can see that Cindy is done. She's outside. She's out of the group now. She's completed the module. He goes back and he can see the progress where it should be. Now he could put together other students. He doesn't have to deal with them one at a time. Let's say that he has a group of 9 o'clock in the morning science, or his 9 o'clock in the morning science class. He's got some students he likes to work with. So he can manage this group and say, here's Cindy, here's Jimmy, here's Libby. And let's see if there's some other students. Oh, there was a student named Ann. Let's add her to the science group. He now has added Ann to the science group. He can come back and go to the group, his 9 o'clock science group, and there it is. It shows that Ann's added to the group. He can add pages or he can add files. If he wants this science group to have access to something like, say, a PDF on how to make a robot, he can add the file to the group for them to download. These are just some of the things that you can do with the groups. Here's possibly the most important one. I'm on the teacher page. Let's go back to here to the basic teacher modules. And I've got a different physics class I want to select. Now I could go through and pick every student one at a time and add them in. Or I can add my entire 9 a.m. science class at one time, and they've all now just been assigned that module for them to work on. And obviously their progress is they haven't done anything yet because they just got it. But he can come here and monitor their progress. Now, if he didn't mean to put Ann in the group yet, because Ann's new and maybe she isn't ready for this module, he can just go ahead and remove her right here. And so she probably didn't even notice that she was assigned a module and then unassigned the module. But when she, when she next time she logs in, she'll see that she has a message saying that she's been assigned, or not she won't, but these other students will. So these are just some real simple basic things working with modules and working with groups of students to assign them, to these modules.
Mm-hmm. We one of the things that, Marv, why don't you bring up one of the modules? I just want to talk a little bit about some of the common features within a module. Most of our modules that are in there are lesson-based, so that'd be that green layer on that rainbow chart that we looked at. Actually, if you want to preview one instead of looking at it, just go ahead and hit the preview button. We have some curriculum that we've started creating. One of the questions that people ask us is, what do you got in there? We actually have some curriculum in some core areas. So this is physical science. And the first page will always be kind of an overview page, and then there will be an outcomes page for the students. What are you going to learn in the process of this module? And then in the module, in some cases, there's interactives, simulations, and such. Here's a good example. This is a legend for this of things that they'll be looking at. There are things, and I'm trying to remember what this is. The different sound waves, I guess, from the animals as they're making. And so in some cases there's videos to watch. In some cases, again, there's other links that they would go out to. Modules tend to be pretty short. They're designed to be about 15 minutes in length, maybe about 10 or 15 pages. And at the end of a module, there will be some sort of task that you have to do. In a lot of cases, there'll be a task for just a check your own understanding quiz or something like that they would do. So, Marv, could you go back to the catalog? I want to just kind of show people some of the other modules that we've got in there. So we don't have all the curriculum that we're going to have eventually. We actually are just in a pilot phase right now. And while teachers are welcome to go in and explore, we're working with just a group of 5 or actually 6 districts that have a few teachers who are going in, using with students, and helping us with the revision of some of the feature sets and such. And so what are some of the curriculum that we've got in there? Under our counseling area, we've got a 40-lesson curriculum with character counts in Iowa, and it's on success skills. So you have things like goal setting, goal mapping, leadership, conflict resolution, and those type of things. And it's again, each lesson in there is about 15 minutes in length. It's really great for a like an advisory time period or such. It's designed for the 7th and 8th grade level, which you can use the menus there to search for by grade. Also in there, as we mentioned, we're starting to work with math and science. Math is in algebra, science is in physical science, so at the 9th grade level, mainly there. And then under tech literacy, there we have a series of modules for digital citizenship. We actually have 3 different series, and we've got 2 listed here. We've got one for K through 2, one for 3 through 5, and then one is 6 and up. And the 6 or up modules are actually not on the system today because we're recoding them, but they'll be on there tomorrow. So when you look, those will be there. We do, so you look at that and say, well, you don't have anything for language arts. You don't have anything for this. You don't have anything for that. And that's true just because this is a brand new system, but we're in the process of developing a lot of that curriculum in conjunction with other teachers. And so, by this summer, we're actually going to probably have about 3 times as much curriculum as what we've got here, and that'll continue to grow as we go through things. So, if there are ideas of things that you say, I would really like to use a system like this, and these are the pieces that I would like to have, that's one of the things that we need that feedback. We would like to know what is the top priority for curriculum that we can help work with you to build and put in there so that this would be a system that would be usable for you.
Sure. Well, good. Thanks, guys. This has been very helpful, figuring out a bit more about what the personalized learning system is all about and kind of the direction we're headed. Evan, Abbey, and Marv Howard, thank you for joining us for this webinar, and appreciate your input.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Thank you.